Okay, so this is video 3 of photosynthesis. We described in the last couple videos. We looked at the vocab words for the chapter. We looked at ATP and what ATP does and phosphorylation. And now we're getting into the 3 stages of photosynthesis itself. So we know from the last video and looking through our notes that photosynthesis is going to be happening within a chloroplast of a plant cell. And we have different parts of a chloroplast. We have the lamella, which you see here in green. Okay. Then it splits, the lamella splits to form a thylakoid, which is this circle here. And the inside of the thylakoid here, where you see the water, that's called the lumen. And then this space out here and up here, this is called the stroma. Okay, that's the liquid outside those thylakoids. And anything you see here out in the stroma and the lumen, here's chlorophyll A, that's green within the lamella and the thylakoid membrane. Things like hydrogen ions, NADP, ADP, enzymes, RUDP, those things are already found within the plant. The only things that the plant's going to take in from the environment would be water, carbon dioxide, and then our sunlight will be from the environment. Everything else is already in the plant, just so you know where it's coming from. So stage 1 of photosynthesis is called activation of chlorophyll A. This is a light-dependent reaction. So here's what's happening. Okay, the light is shining on the plant. What happens is that chlorophyll A here in the thylakoid membrane is going to absorb that sunlight. All right, so the sun is shining and chlorophyll A absorbs that sunlight. Well, there are electrons in chlorophyll A. And when that chlorophyll A absorbs that sunlight, it excites and energizes these electrons and they start to spin. Okay, and then they spin and they spin and they spin. The more energy that they absorb from the sun, the faster that they begin to spin. And they spin so much that they actually become highly energized, which is why our tilde is there. And they leave. They actually spin so much that they leave the thylakoid membrane and they travel into the stroma. That's it. That's stage 1. So think of these electrons spinning so fast. If you've ever been to the playground, have you ever been on one of those circle rides that go around and around and around, and as you spin it faster, you get pulled outwards? Try to think of that with that electron. It spins so fast that it just kind of gets launched from this thylakoid membrane into that stroma. So stage 1, activation of chlorophyll A. It's a light-dependent reaction. And at the end of it, we get a high energy electron. Stage 2 is called photolysis. Okay, so think photo for light. Lysis, you should know by now, means to split or to break. So we're going to break something down using light. All right, so let's look for that. This is also called a light-dependent reaction because it depends on light. It needs light in order to happen. And it's right in the name, photolysis. Photo means light, so it needs light. So at the end of stage 1, we were left with that high energy electron. So we don't want to forget that. So in your notes on page 2 of what you've drawn, we still draw what we have in stage 1 because we don't want to forget about it. So what's going to happen now is the light is still shining on the plant because remember, it's a light-dependent reaction. And it's going to cause the dissociation of water. So we have our water molecule here. And remember, to dissociate means to break down into ions, right? So what's going to happen is we get hydrogen ions, oxygen atoms, and we're also going to get electrons, all right? So this is all important. We're going to look at what each of these things do. Water, once again, okay, water is broken down by light. So photolysis, water is broken down by light. Okay, we get hydrogen ions, we get oxygen atoms, and we get electrons. The oxygen is going to diffuse, whoa, throwback to last chapter, right? The oxygen diffuse from an area of high concentration which is within the lumen here, to an area of lower concentration, which is actually outside the plant. And that's our first product of photosynthesis. We know that plants make oxygen. So awesome. Here it is, guys. This is how it happens. Okay. The electron that we made here when we broke apart water, that's going to actually travel down an electron transport chain to go back to chlorophyll A to replace this one that we lost. So since this one down here in red, since that moved away from the chlorophyll, we leave this chlorophyll without an electron to make photosynthesis happen the next time. Because this is like a cycle, guys. It continuously happens over and over and over again. So in order to allow it to happen over again, you need to replace what you lost. So this electron is going to allow stage 1 to happen again. And then our hydrogen ion is going to diffuse from an area of high concentration in the lumen to an area of low concentration into the stroma. And the energy of this movement is actually used to combine ADP and a phosphate, which we know as phosphorylation from the last video. And when you add ADP and a phosphate, with the help of an enzyme, we get ATP, the king of energy molecules. So we've created an energy source here that, you guessed it, we're going to use later on. So keep that in mind. So so far, we've made oxygen, we've replaced our electron that we lost in stage 1, and we've also made some ATP, which is pretty cool. The last thing that's going to happen is there are high energy electron from stage 1. We're going to use that energy in order to combine NADP and these two hydrogen ions located in the stroma. And when we add these all together, we get NADPH2. So the whole thing's NADPH2, but we have it written like that because we are actually going to use the H2 later on. So I have it separated, but it is one big thing, NADPH2. And NADPH2 is also an energy source that we're going to use later on. So that is stage 2, the end of stage 2. Once again, in stage 2, we got our oxygen, we got ATP, and we got NADPH2. So those are our 3 products of stage 2, oxygen, ATP, and NADPH2. We also, once again, replaced the electron we lost in stage 1 so that stage 1 could happen next time around. Stage 3, we call this the Calvin cycle. It could also be called the carbon dioxide fixation cycle. And this is a light-independent reaction, so it does not need light to happen. Doesn't mean it needs darkness, it just means it doesn't need light. So it could happen in the light, it could happen in the dark, it does not matter. And you'll see on your note paper, we are mainly concerned in the stroma. So stage 3 doesn't use the thylakoid or the lumen at all. Everything in stage 3 is located out here in the stroma, all right? So what's happening here? We have carbon dioxide. Where did that come from? It came from the environment, guys. It came from us. We gave the plants this carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide from the environment is going to bond with RUDP, and that's a sugar that's already in the plant. The plant actually makes RUDP, all right? So carbon dioxide and RUDP are going to combine together with the help of an enzyme. And when this happens, we get a sugar, and it's an unstable 6-carbon sugar. We don't even name it because it immediately breaks down into 2 molecules of PGA, right, which is one of your vocab words. Each PGA molecule will receive high amounts of energy from our ATP. So this is ATP, but I'm showing you that it's getting a high energy phosphate. And it's also going to get the H2, which is high energy as well. So these will combine, And this PGA will do the same thing with another ATP and another NADPH2, but I'm just showing you one for now. So these three things are going to combine, and it's going to give us pGal, which is a sugar. Then what's going to happen is pGal will then go on and form either glucose, which is what the plant uses for energy. It could also go on and form starch, which we know that it's used to store energy in plants, right? It's stored energy. Or last thing, that pGal could go on and form more RUDP. Why do you think we need more RUDP? Right here, we need to replace the RUDP that we already used in the Calvin cycle. So we need this in order to accept more carbon dioxide and make the Calvin cycle happen again. So those are our three products of the Calvin cycle. These are our, products, once again, of photosynthesis. We made oxygen and we made sugar. We made glucose is our main one. Starch, once again, stored energy. We could also make RUDP in order to restart the Calvin cycle. So all three stages of photosynthesis put together look like this. You can't see the top really. So if we look at the equation for photosynthesis, it looks like this. We get 6 carbon dioxide molecules, which come from the environment. They combine with 6 water molecules, which also come from the environment. And in the presence of sunlight, we are able to convert these things into glucose, which we saw at the end of the Calvin cycle, and 6 oxygen molecules, which we saw in stage 2 photolysis when the oxygen diffused from the lumen into the atmosphere. So once again, we saw carbon dioxide come in and be used in the Calvin cycle. We saw water a couple times, but mainly in stage 2 with photolysis. And we saw glucose being made in the Calvin cycle and oxygen being made in photolysis, stage 2 as well. So that is photosynthesis. Hopefully now you know where these things are coming from and what's being made. We will have another video, one last video for this chapter on cell respiration, so stay tuned for that.